Let's see here. Check my audio real quick. Where's that coming from? There it is. Okay. Awesome. Okay. How is... I'm muted? I'm definitely not muted, C17R. Okay. Good morning. Happy Thursday. Oh, it might have been low. Let me double check here. Check my microphone. How about that? Is that better? Okay. Your plan is to steal my shirts while we're at Gen Con? Don't. Please don't do that. I like my shirts. I just got this new one. Yeah. Stitch. I am very excited for Gen Con, Davy Jones. It's gonna be a wild ride. Let's see here. I missed a bunch of messages. I'm so sorry. Artemis, good morning, Waffle Bites. Good morning, Artemis. A pleasure. Thursdays, Thursdays, Gursdays, Bursdays, Thursdays, Wursdays. Correct. Doing great. How about you? Doing okay. Have a long work day ahead of me, but otherwise okay. Muted. That's where I came in. I'm not, but here we are. Loving the shirts. The shirts are great. I love all of my shirts, and I keep buying more, and I don't have a problem. Just very quiet. I mean, it's not still quiet, right? It shouldn't be. Plan is to steal my shirts. That's where we picked up my melodious voice. I'll pull a Joey and wear all of them at once. No. Please do not steal my shirts. Deja vu. We've been in this conversation this morning. Let's see here. Okay. First things first. Look what I found. This is a gelatinous cube. It's got a dude stuck in it. And then in the back, I've named this one Mike Wazowski. He's stuck. Poor little dude. You can just barely see through the gelatinous cube. He's got like his skull in there and whole skeleton, a treasure chest. It's wild. It is going into the dungeon. There it is. In honor of your clumsy monk. Speaking of shirts, they let you design merch for the Voctaire, and a shirt that says hashtag shitty monk. That's fun. I love the merch designing aspect of all of this. I have ideas for stuff that I want to make. I just haven't had the right content to make it with, unfortunately. Okay. Let's see. This morning, I have a thing I want to do. I'll pull this up. We're gonna talk about ships today. Not just any ships. Ships in D&D and other role-playing games. I'm curious to pick your guys' thoughts on this stuff. Because it can be annoying to run ship combat. D&D Beyond. I'm not logged in to the right account. There we go. I think this is the one that screen shares. D&D Beyond. Let's try this. Under screen share. There we are. Okay. So if I type in ship, there are a couple of ships. They're under equipment, apparently. But I feel like something that would be super useful is if they could be in, whatchamacallit? Ship stat blocks, that's what I'm looking for. If they could be listed as a creature on D&D Beyond, because then I could put them into initiative and have specific like actions that they take on their turns. So I may just end up having to rebuild these as monsters in D&D Beyond, just for the initiative sake of things. It'd be easier if they were listed like that. Ships in role-playing games are wild. It's so weird to me, because everybody wants cannons, and then of course cannons are wildly broken. So there's not a ton of stuff that you can do with a ship unless you've got like a lot of coin. There's not a whole lot of content for ships either in 5e at least. Let's see here. There's a rowboat, a longship, a keelboat, and a galley. Those are the only ships that I know of that are in 5e. And those are from the Ghost of Saltmarsh stuff. So I really think 5e needs to retool this. This is not enough content for those of us who are really into pirates and want pirate games. Even just a ship supplement would be nice. Anyway, less of a content I wanted to talk about today, and more of a continuous complaint I have. I wish that there was more content for ships and seafaring voyages and that sort of thing for D&D. Campaign started with players crash landing an airship. Does that count? I mean, it doesn't not count. I have one group that their campaign, they wanted to do a some sort of Spelljammer game or something like that. They're a bunch of kids, so I basically started their game with all of them as prisoners in an airship transport that got attacked, and the airship crash landed. And so now they have the remains of this ship, but they're going to be working on repairing it and getting it back up and running, which has been substantially more time consuming than I anticipated it being. So it'll be back up and running soon. Futuristic Skyrim, I like it. Yeah, it very similar. Yeah, I'm a big fan of. I've never run Spelljammer. I've never even read Spelljammer. So I'm very excited to read through all of it when it comes out in August. But it's not something I'm familiar with. So a lot of it is just I know Star Wars. Here, let me see if I can find it here. Dun 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 dun. And since I don't have monsters for the actual Spelljammer stuff, I've just been going on Hero Forge and making tokens of different Star Wars creatures. Screen share. So this is my Jawa. They attacked, and they had little blasters, and they could I gave them the ability to turn invisible so that they could just sort of disappear into the woods. At a beholder, destroy the flight engine of an airship, and the whole party went into free fall. They had to climb into the ship and get a war wagon unpacked and started. They got to have the action movie moment of bursting out of the back of the ship, and that's very cool. I like that a lot, Davy Jones. But yeah, this is my Jawa. This is my Ewok. This is my Tusken Raider, and Cad Bane. Currently, they're tracking down Cad Bane in order to in order to fix the engine of their ship, they need a power source. In order to get that power source, they need to enter a pod race and win. And in order to in order to enter, they need a pod, which in order to get a pod, they've made a deal with some guy who's being hassled by this bounty hunter, and said they would give them the pod if they could get rid of the bounty hunter. So now they have to track down Cad Bane, which is fun. It's fun to basically just take D&D and be like, yeah, but it's Star Wars now. This is a surprisingly accurate Tusken Raider. Thank you. It took a while. I went back and forth on that design for a while. The Ewok is probably the one that I'm least satisfied with. There's just no good way to do them. I am pretty proud of the Jawa, though. Especially with the eyes glowing in the dark. That one turned out pretty good. And Cad Bane. Cad Bane turned out really good, too. The breathe tubes on the side of his head are actually horns on Hero Forge. I just rotated them until I got them along the side of his head. The Tusken Raider is definitely the one I'm proudest of, though. It looks good. Okay. Hey, Affy, welcome to the stream. 4 levels of convolution. That's the minimum needed convolution for a tabletop RPG. Yeah, fair enough. There's a lot of nonsense that you can get into with a good rabbit hole. Let's see here. I don't really want to spend a lot of time talking about... I know I said I wanted to talk about ships. I don't want to talk about ships. I really just wanted to say that I'm frustrated at the lack of ship content in D&D. That's it. That's all I wanted to complain about. What I would like to talk about, though, we designed a monster. Was it last week or the week before? But we as a channel designed a monster. It was super, super fun. That thing is horrifying, and I cannot wait to throw it at some players. This week, I would like to talk about... We've talked about it before in the, how do you make a CR that is challenging without wiping out players? I'm in the middle of running a few games that are low-level players that are still really well equipped. And so the majority of the time, a CR that says that it's going to be disastrous is still nothing. They'll get into that fight and you just can't hit them, or once you do hit them, they still have so much other stuff that it doesn't even matter. I have one group where the paladin of their group is super heavily armored. So he's hard to hit anyway, but then he spends the entire battle just standing in the way of monsters and taking the dodge action so that they can't hit him. Disadvantage on any attack against him is brutal. Have I looked at the Vecna stat block? I have. It's beautiful. I'm very excited. In fact, we could go through that whole thing if we want to. That thing is gnarly. Let me pull it up here. Vecna, the Archlich. Ooh, did they add these as official too? Interesting. The eye and the hand are on there too now. They may have been on there before, I just didn't notice. Okay, so, Vecna the Archlich. Let's see. David Jones, it's a nice balance of 100% PC death and a little tiny opening of weakness. Vecna the Archlich. Armor class of 18. Not undoable. I will say, that's a natural armor of armor class 18. That's just without anything else on. That's armor class 18. I'm a big fan of monsters that use equipment. Hit points 22 or 32 d8s plus 128. Median hit point of 272. That's a lot of hit points. Speed of 30, so some players will probably be faster than him. Not as insane stats as I was expecting. 14 in strength, 16 in dex, 16 in charisma. Then you've got an 18 in constitution, 22 intelligence, 24 wisdom. So definitely a mental heavy character. Strength and dex, you could get around that. Saving throw bonuses for con, int, and wisdom are super high though. Plus 12 on constitution saving throws. Resistant to cold, lightning, and necrotic damage. That makes sense. Immune to poisoning, bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing. Yeah, that's a undead thing. Can't be charmed, exhausted, frightened, paralyzed, poisoned, or stunned. Oh boy. True sight out to 120 feet. Not ideal. Common, Draconic, Elvish, and Infernal for languages. Can you imagine if Vecna didn't have Common as a language? That'd be super funny. Legendary resistance. 5 times per day. If Vecna fails a saving throw, he can just choose to succeed instead. I could be wrong. 5 seems high. Isn't it usually 3? That's a lot. Let's see here. Special equipment. Vecna carries a magic dagger named Afterthought. In the hands of anyone other than Vecna, Afterthought is just a +2 dagger. Let's see here. Afterthought. Plus 13 to hit. Reach 5 foot, 1 target. Hit does 1d4 plus 5 of piercing damage, plus 2d8 of necrotic damage. If the target is a creature, it is afflicted by entropic magic, taking 2d8 necrotic damage at the start of each of its turns. Immediately after taking this damage on its turn, the target can make a DC 20 Constitution saving throw, ending the effect on itself on a success. Until it succeeds on that save, the afflicted target can't regain hit points. Oof. That's really rough. 2d8 necrotic damage at the start of each of your turns in order to make it stop DC 20 Constitution saving throw. That's really rough. Always thought Lich was the TPK monster as long as the Lich has any warning. If it's played right, yeah. If a Lich is played correctly, any really high CR creature should be really rough if they know you're coming. Affy, thank you for confirming. Yeah, usually 3 legendary resistances, so 5 is brutal. Give them the hand in the eye of Vecna. You absolutely could. It would make him nigh unstoppable. We'll get into the hand and eye in a second. Let's see here. Undying. If Vecna is slain, his soul refuses to accept its fate and lives as a disembodied spirit that fashions a new body for itself in 1d100 years. Vecna's soul... excuse me. Vecna's soul can fashion a new body even if its old body was burned to ash or otherwise obliterated. When the new body is completed, Vecna regains all of his hit points and becomes active again. Vecna's new body appears anywhere within 100 miles of where he was slain. Vecna doesn't require air, food, drink, or sleep. Vecna uses Flight of the Damned, if available, Rotten Fate, or Spellcasting. He then makes 2 attacks with his Afterthought on his turn. Oh my goodness. So he gets 1 of 3 different abilities, and then also 2 attacks with that weapon that makes you continue to take necrotic damage. So let's see. Flight of the Damned recharges on a 5 or 6. conjures a torrent of flying spectral entities that fill a 120-foot cone and pass through all creatures in that area before dissipating. Each creature in that area must make a DC 22 Constitution saving throw. On a fail, the creature takes 8d8 necrotic damage and is frightened of Vecna for 1 minute. On a successful save, the creature takes half as much damage and isn't frightened. A frightened creature can repeat the saving throw at the end of each of its turns, ending the effect on itself on a success. That's brutal too. Rotten Fate. Vecna causes necrotic magic to engulf one creature he can see within 120 feet of himself. The target must make a DC 22 Constitution saving throw, taking 8d8 plus 60 necrotic damage on a failed save, or half as much damage on the successful one. A humanoid killed in this manner rises as a zombie at the start of Vecna's next turn, and it acts immediately after Vecna in the initiative order, with the zombie under Vecna's control. Again, brutal. Vecna casts, for his spellcasting, he casts one of the following spells requiring no material components and using intelligence as the spellcasting ability. Spell save DC 22. At will, he can animate dead, detect magic, dispel magic, fly, lightning bolt, mage hand, or prestidigitation. 2 times per day, he can dimension door, cast invisibility, and scry. And 1 time per day, he can dominate monster, globe of invulnerability, and plane shift. Oh, man. You'd have to be really prepared to take him on. An immobile, faintly shimmering barrier springs into existence. Yeah, globe of invulnerability is horrifying. Also, vile teleport. As a bonus action, Vecna teleports along with any equipment he is wearing or carrying up to 30 feet to an unoccupied space he can see. He can cause each creature of his choice within 15 feet of his destination to take 3d6 of psychic damage. If at least one creature takes this damage, he regains 80 hit points. As a bonus action. Let's see here. Yeah, that's brutal, Davy Jones. All that in addition to the 20th level spell slots. Let's see here. Theoretically, yes, BBG Hayward. Theoretically, he would also have access to the 20th level spell slots. However, he is technically a monster stat block. So he doesn't have access to additional spells. These spells would be the like those spellcasting stuff that I just read through. That would be the spells that he has access to. If you wanted to beef him up, you could also give him access to 20th level spells, but that seems like a death sentence. Vecna with Wish is horrifying. Let's see here. Also has up to 3 reactions per round, but only once per turn. Dread Counterspell utters a dread word to interrupt a creature that it can see casting a spell. If the spell is 4th level or lower, it fails and has no effect. If the spell is 5th level or higher, Vecna makes an intelligence check with a DC of 10 plus the spell's level. On a success, the spell fails and has no effect. Whenever the spell's level, the caster takes 3d6 of psychic damage if the spell fails. Let's see here. Fell Rebuke. In response to being hit by an attack, Vecna utters a fell word, dealing 3d6 of necrotic damage to the attacker. And he teleports along with any equipment he is wearing or carrying up to 30 feet to an unoccupied space he can see. So if that barbarian gets up on him, and hits him once, he can just boof, disappear, go to a new space 30 feet away, and deal 3d6 of necrotic damage. Weird that he isn't a character monster. So this is how all 5th edition spellcasters work for monsters now. Any, like, even if they're a humanoid, like, let me pull up the something a different creature. So like even the Archmage stat block in 5e has 4 cantrips. It has a list of like other spells that it can cast. So it can cast, it has one 9th level spell slot, so it can cast Time Stop with that. 1 8th level for Mind Blank, 1 7th level for Teleport, 1 6th level for Globe of Invulnerability. So this is it's not how it used to be. There used to be a lot more intense with like, oh yeah, monsters can have access to all the same spells. But that resulted in a lot of GMs being like, okay, well these are the spells that would be super effective against my players, so I'm going to make sure that I have those prepped for this monster for the fight with them. And so they started moving away from that just to avoid it, and instead giving a lot of spell-like abilities to monsters, and then also additional spells. So, in my opinion, yes, Vecna should have access to any spells that he wants to. He's a 20th level spellcaster. But he is also a lich. He's closer to a god than a mortal at this point. So it would make sense that a lot of his abilities were more innate. So instead of having spell slots that he can cast and manipulate, he has specific abilities that he can use for anything that he wants to. Plus, the new way they make spellcasting stat blocks is to make 1 to 3 big spell abilities instead, and then give them more utility spells as actual spells. Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of It also just makes it easier for the GM when they're running, because you'll have Vecna's stat block is very large. But I can read through this and know what he has access to. If he's also a 20th level spellcaster and I have to familiarize myself with all of the spells that he could potentially cast using those spells, or build out a spell book for him to use, that's a lot more stuff that you have to keep track of. Keeping in mind also, Vecna definitely wouldn't be alone if you were fighting him. He would have a whole horde of undead that you would have to fight through to even get near him, during which time he will also still be throwing attacks at you. I believe you just not totally read it. Yeah, absolutely. This is not a means of like, oh, you fool, BPG Hayward. How do you not know these things? I'm just explaining why it is the way it is. But yes, Davy Jones, Vecna stat block, horrifying. Just an absolute beast to go up against. I'm not super crazy about the artwork they put out for him. I would have preferred that there was some sort of like we know what the eye in the hand of Vecna looks like. So either representing those two in the artwork of Vecna would have been cool, or have him missing those things in the official artwork. Either of those would have been preferable in my book. The other thing that's interesting here is, according to, like, he has all of that stuff, right? He has all those abilities. In addition to that, according to the rest of the write-up, he also has the Book of Vile Darkness, which is horrifying in its own right, but he will always have the Book of Vile Darkness, or in this write-up, it says that he has incorporated the book into himself, so he just acts as his own living Book of Vile Darkness. That's horrifying. Let's see here. Yeah, Yeah, well, Vecna always carries the Book of Vile Darkness on his person. In fact, he fashioned his lich form to encompass the book. He typically has no need to call upon its foul magic in battle. If the DM wishes to run a more challenging and more complex encounter, Vecna may call upon any of the book's abilities as appropriate. So, let's move on to the Book of Vile Darkness, shall we? First of all, Book of Vile Darkness, creepy. You can also, if you pull up the image of it, and I can screen share. Looking at it, you can see the pattern on it is very reminiscent of the sort of whole vibe of Vecna, with the gold filigree stuff and the gems. Clearly, they're designed in tandem. The contents of this foul manuscript, ineffable wickedness, are the meat and drink of those in evil's thrall. No mortal was meant to know the secrets it contains, knowledge so horrid that even a glimpse of the scrawled pages invites madness. This thing is brutal. The main abilities of it. It has random properties, so it has 3 minor beneficial properties, 1 major beneficial property, 3 minor detrimental properties, and 2 major detrimental properties. So that's the way that artifacts work. Is artifacts will always have benefits and detriments to them, and those are decided by the GM. There's tables that you can roll on to determine what those are, but a lot of GMs will just sort of decide what those are going to be. In addition to those those changes, so we don't even know what the major beneficial property, major detrimental properties, the minor properties, without any of those even remotely factored into play. First of all, adjustability score. After you spend the required amount of time reading and studying the book, 1 ability score of your choice increases by 2 to a maximum of 24. Another ability score of your choice decreases by 2 to a minimum of 3. The book can't adjust your ability scores again. So you're basically taking 2 points from one location and putting them into another. The Mark of Darkness. After you spend the requisite amount of time reading and studying the book, you acquire a physical disfigurement as a hideous sign of your devotion to vile darkness. An evil rune might appear on your face, the eyes might become glossy black, or horns might sprout from your forehead. Or you might become wizened and hideous, lose all facial features, gain a forked tongue, or some other feature the DM chooses. The Mark of Darkness grants you advantage on persuasion checks made to interact with evil creatures, and intimidation checks made to interact with non-evil creatures. Command Evil. When you attune to the book and are holding it, you can use an action to cast the Dominate monster spell on an evil target. You can't use this property again until the next dawn. So if you have an evil person in your party and they go up against Vecna, he can command them. Dark Lore, you can reference the not super helpful in fights. Dark Speech, you can use the action to recite words from its page in a foul language known as Dark Speech. Each time you do so, you take 1d12 psychic damage, and each non-evil creature within 15 feet of you takes 3d6 psychic damage. Destroying the book. The Book of Vile Darkness allows its pages to be torn from it, but any evil lore contained on those pages finds its way back into the book eventually. If a Solar tears the book in 2, the book is destroyed for a D100 of years, but then it reforms. Oh boy. If you are attuned to the book for 100 years, you can unearth a phrase hidden in the original text which, translated into Celestial and spoken aloud, destroys both the speaker and the book in a blinding flash of radiance. However, as long as evil exists in the multiverse, the book reforms 1d10 times 100 years later. If all evil in the multiverse is wiped out, the book turns to dust and is forever destroyed. Horrifying. Character can use the lore to unearth terrible secrets. The book could hold a ritual that allows a character to become a lich or a death knight. The true names of any number of fiends might be in the book. Several spells of horrific evil of the DM's design and choosing could be in the book. Spells could impose dreadful curses, disfigure others, require human sacrifices, etc. Yeah, horrible, horrible book. We don't like it. Moving on, there are two very notable magic items that are associated with Vecna. That is the hand and the eye of Vecna. According to the lore, both his hand and his eye were removed. He's such a powerful individual that those severed limbs still retain a massive amount of magic. So you have this severed hand. It looks like just a mummified hand. It's actually sitting right here in this dome. You can just kind of barely see the eye there as well. So let's see here. What does it have? It contains one minor beneficial, one major beneficial, and one minor detrimental property. Only one minor detrimental property. I've seen worse. Properties of the hand. Your alignment changes to neutral evil, and you gain the following benefits. Your strength score becomes 20 unless it is already 20 or higher. Any melee spell attack that you make with the hand and any melee weapon attack made with a weapon held by it deals an extra 2d8 of cold damage on a hit. The hand has 8 charges, and you can use an action to expend 1 or more charges to cast one of the following spells. Finger of Death, Sleep, Slow, Teleport. The hand regains 1d4 plus 4 expended charges daily at dawn. Each time you cast a spell from the hand, it casts the suggestion spell on you, demanding that you commit an evil act. The hand might have a specific act in mind or leave it up to you. That's very interesting. The something that isn't really gone over on the stat blocks for 5e, and it might just be a 5e thing, is that I know in the old edition, the hand and the eye also worked together. So if you had both of them attuned to you at the same time, you got even more abilities from both of them. Seems like it needs a mechanism to regenerate. Perhaps an eternal evil god rewrites it or commissions a demon or devil to do it. Could be. You're talking about the Book of Vile Darkness? I don't have any water in here, Affy, so Mountain Dew rehydrates, right? First ingredient is water. That works. Okay, moving along. Eye of Vecna. The Eye of Vecna is same as the hand, torn out of him. The eye also gives you one minor, one major, and one minor detrimental. Properties of the eye. Your alignment changes to neutral evil. You gain the following benefits. You have true sight. Very useful. You can use an action to see as if you were wearing a ring of X-ray vision. You have X-ray vision? That's awesome. You can end this effect as a bonus action. The eye has 8 charges. You can use an action to expend 1 or more charges to cast one of the following spells. Clairvoyance, Crown of Madness, Disintegrate, Dominate Monster, or Eye Bite. Each time you cast a spell from the eye, there's a 5% chance that Vecna tears your soul from your body, devours it, and then takes control of the body like a puppet. If this happens, you become an NPC under the DM's control. Okay. So we can agree the eye is a little bit worse than the hand. That's a detrimental thing. That's bad. Yeah, I would never use one of the spells from the eye. I will say though, if you don't use it, you can still do True Sight and X-Ray Vision and just never use any of the spells granted to you. I mean, that's not bad. That's not horrible. There are worse options out there. At least with the hand, it just compels you to complete the evil act. If you use one of its spells, it's very transactional. Very interesting. Destroying the eye and the hand. If the eye of Vecna and the hand of Vecna are both attached to the same creature, and that creature is slain by the Sword of Cass. Hey, thanks for following, Affy. That creature is slain by the Sword of Cass. Both the eye and the hand burst into flame, turn to ash, and destroyed forever. Any other attempt to destroy the eye or hand seems to work, but the artifact reappears in one of Vecna's many hidden vaults where it waits to be rediscovered. So that's very interesting. I could see somebody attuning to both of them with the hope of destroying both of them. And just seeing, like, that'd be a very interesting storyline. To be fair, if you choose to do it, you probably are evil aligned anyway. The argument could be made of, like, power over intelligence, that you're seeking the power from it and not realizing the ramifications of it. Also, if I had $1 for every player of mine who is attuned to a magic item without knowing anything about what it does, I'd have a lot of money. Let's see here. Your wife says hi. Hi, Davy Jones's wife. Deborah Jones. Let's see here. Oh, we should read about the Sword of Cass too if we're on here. So the Sword of Cass is an artifact that belonged to Cass. Cass is or was one of the main, like, allies of the of Vecna when he was in power. Cass grew to distrust Vecna, tried to seize power for himself, and attacked Vecna. In some versions of the story, Cass is the one that removed the hand and the eye from Vecna. In other versions, Vecna did that to himself. It varies. But the important thing is, after Cass was destroyed, his sword lingered on. The sword is wild. So let's read this for a second. Cass served faithfully to the Lich, but as Cass's power grew, so did his hubris. His sword urged him to supplant Vecna, so that he could rule the Lich's empire in Vecna's stead. Legend says Vecna's destruction came at Cass's hand, but Vecna also wrought his rebellious lieutenant's doom, leaving only Cass's sword behind. The Sword of Cass is a magic sentient longsword that grants a +3 bonus to attack and damage rolls made with it. It scores a critical hit on a roll of 19 or 20 and deals an extra 2d10 slashing damage to undead. If the sword isn't bathed in blood within 1 minute of being drawn from its scabbard, its wielder must make a DC 15 charisma saving throw. On a successful save, the wielder takes 3d6 psychic damage. On a failed one, the wielder is dominated by the sword, as if by a dominate monster spell, and the sword demands that it be bathed in blood. The spell's effect ends when the sword's demand is met. 3d6 of psychic damage if you succeed on that save. Don't draw the sword if you don't plan on killing things. Random properties of the sword: 1 minor beneficial, 1 major beneficial, 1 minor detrimental, 1 major detrimental.
I believe that's the same as the Book of Vile Darkness as well. Spirit of Chaos. When the sword is on your person, you add a d10 to your initiative at the start of each combat. That's cool. In addition, when you use your action to attack with the sword, you can transfer some or all of its attack bonus to your armor class. Ooh. The adjusted bonus remains in effect until the start of your next turn. That's very cool. That's a cool mechanic. Spells. When the sword is on your person, you can use your action to cast one of the following spells. Call Lightning, Divine Word, or Finger of Death. Can't cast that spell again from it until the next dawn. The Sword of Chaos is a sentient, chaotic, evil weapon with an intelligence of 15, a wisdom of 13, and a charisma of 16. It has hearing and dark vision out to a range of 120 feet. The weapon communicates telepathically with its wielder and can speak, read, and understand Common. Personality. The sword's purpose is to bring ruin to Vecna, killing Vecna's worshippers, destroying the Lich's works, and foiling the machinations. All help to fulfill this goal. The Sword of Chaos also seeks to destroy anyone corrupted by the eye and hand of Vecna. The sword's obsession with those artifacts eventually becomes a fixation to its wielder. Destroying the sword, a creature attuned to both the eye of Vecna and the hand of Vecna can use the wish property of those combined artifacts to unmake the Sword of Chaos. The creature must cast the wish spell and make a charisma check contested by the charisma check of the sword. The sword must be within 30 feet of the creature, and if the spell fails, the sword wins the contest. Nothing happens, and the wish spell is wasted. The sword loses the contest, it is destroyed. That's very interesting. So the Sword of Chaos can be used to destroy the eye and hand of Vecna, but the eye and hand of Vecna can also be used to destroy the Sword of Chaos. I love that. Duality. Let's see here. Sagra, the Belt of Gender Change was all... in early edition, I believe it was called the Girdle of Masculinity, Femininity. Which is just a wild magic item that its sole purpose is just to swap your presenting gender, which is just absolutely wild. Need more random weird magic items like in early editions. I agree. Isn't that the story of that video game? Diablo, you kill a bunch of evil stuff only to become Diablo. Ooh, spoilers. I haven't played. It's a Defender from BDT. Like a Defender longsword. The artwork's very similar. Let's see. Crimson, good morning. Welcome. I am doing well. I'm tired, but I'm here. Sakura, that's right. Just woke up. Diablo's 25-year-old game. It's okay. I mean, there's newer versions of it. BTD. PDT. Yes. Yeah, I mean, the artwork is very similar. That is actually an effect of the Defender, isn't it? It's been a while since I've had somebody who had one of those. Defender Longsword, you gain a +3 to... Yeah, that's straight out of the Defender stat block. Good call. Well done. That's such a good item. I love the Defender. Let's see here. Anytime I have like a really driven paladin in one of my games, Defender Swords ends up making its way into those games. Okay. Let me grab my old DM's guide and see if I can find the old version of the eye and the hand, because I would love to see what the difference is between them. Give me 1 second. Somebody chair stream it. Okay. So, kick it old school here. AD&D. Let's see here. Actually, if I just sort of kick into the back here. Magic items. Fun fact, the alchemy jug in AD&D had the ability to make ammonia, chlorine, and cyanide. Couldn't make mayonnaise, though, so... worse, I guess. Let's see here. Artifacts. Baba Yaga's hut. Oh, the Crown of Might. Oh my goodness. Let's see here. The Eye of Vecna. Here we go. Seldom is the name of Vecna spoken except in hushed voices. That's the same intro. I'm 95% certain. Yeah. Seldom is the name of Vecna spoken except in hushed voices. Okay. Two level 1s, 2 level 2s, 1 level 4, 1 level 5 abilities. The minor or major powers may be used without fear or harm, but use of primary powers causes a malevolent effect upon the host character. Interesting. Hand of Vecna has... Oh, man. The Hand of Vecna has 10 level 1s, 5 level 2s, 2 level 3s, 2 level 4s, 2 level 5s, and 1 level 6. That's... man, that's horrifying. That's very interesting. I thought there was a thing of if you had them together. Interesting. It doesn't look like there was in this one. I thought there was. Anyway. Let's see here. The Ancient Scrolls, Story Time of Ye Old Times with Grandpa Hunter. I don't like that. I did learn to play in AD&D. That's what my dad played, and so that's what he taught me. So I did learn all of it. I learned how to run games in first edition. But it's definitely a very different game. Where was the Regalia of Might? That brings back good memories. There is a I don't know if it exists in 5th edition. Let's find out. There's the Rod of Lordly Might. That's not the same thing though. There's 3 different sets of magic items in first edition, well, AD&D, that had they were each set to one of the good and evil alignments. So there was the rod, the orb, and the crown of good, evil, and neutrality. And each one had like some crazy powers, different effects that went along with them. But there are with each one that you acquired, you gained additional benefits. So if you had both the crown and the orb, these additional powers were unlocked to you. These additional effects went into place. In one of the campaigns that I played in the early years of me playing, my character was the leader of our group, and we were trying to take out this like horrifying evil that was called Kryden, the Shattered King, actually. BPG Hayward, if you're still here. I don't know if C17R is still here either, but yeah, the Shattered King was the villain of that first campaign, and he was a horrifying opponent, and he had the regalia of might for evil. So he had the crown, the orb, and the scepter. And so in order for us to even have a chance of beating him, we had to track down the other side of that. We had to track down the regalia of might for good. And so my character was slowly collecting those over the course of a campaign. And I have very fond memories of that campaign. It went excuse me. It went very weird very quickly, as many D&D campaigns do. But very fond memories. I don't believe the regalia of might made it into I know for a fact it didn't make it into 5th edition. It may have made it into 4th. Let's see here. Here we go. 9 powerful artifacts that's said to have been made by the gods before the dawn of humanity, composed of 3 sets of artifacts each: the regalia of good, the regalia of neutrality, and regalia of evil. A crown, an orb, and a scepter. Looks like they made it to 3rd edition before they were removed, which makes sense. That's when they started sort of moving in a different direction. But there were some cool powers that came from that. I also always just loved the concept of ancient artifacts that sort of work together. That was always fun for me. Anyway, we're at our halfway point. So let's go ahead and plug some people. Let's see here. We'll go if I just push this.
Easy to.
I'm bored.
We can go scream at the cat for another hour.
Nah, I'm tired of screaming at the cat.
Shut up with that! Be bored no more with 1985 Games. Enjoy their vast variety of products and help bring your tabletop to a whole new level. With easy-to-use dungeon sticky notes. The deck of stories holds prompts and adventure hooks for any setting, and thousands of cutout game pieces with their dungeon craft.
You've come all this way for nothing, fool! The princess is mine! You'll never get away with this, Balakor!
Write everything down in your Hero Notes journal and start your adventure today! Visit the World Wide Web address 1985games.com and find many helpful products such as their Dungeon Craft series, battle maps, deck of stories, miniatures, dungeon notes, and now VHS dice. Again, that's 1985games.com.
That's 1985 Games. If you haven't checked them out, they are super cool. I love them very much. They've been partnered with the stream for a while. Like we've been with them for a good long time. If you haven't checked out them out, go do it. Click on that link I dropped in the chat there. They've got all sorts of stuff. They've got their dungeon craft, which is different like battle maps and stuff like that. Deck of stories will let you have different characters and quests and stuff like that. They make it super easy to put stuff together. Their hero notes are different journals for their different stuff. They also recently added to their site, a whole page for wholesale. So if you know like local game stores that you would like to see carrying this stuff, have them reach out. They are really, really cool. I love their stuff. They've also been with the stream from very early on, so very thankful for that. You can use coupon code WAFFLES at checkout. That will give you 10% off of your purchase. However, as long as you used our link, it doesn't really matter what code you use. We'll get the credit for sending you there. So if you find a better code, if you'd prefer like free shipping or something like that, feel free to use whatever code works best for you. In addition to them, I don't have a video for it, but actually, do I have a video for it? I might have a video for it. Let's see. This is gonna click through weird scenes for a minute. That's not it. Also not it. Still not it. Maybe here? No. How about now? Not it. I might not have it. I do not. I do not have the video for it. Okay, so let's do this. Kickstarter. Pull up the video for Woodworks because they only have like 3 days left on their Kickstarter, and I want to make sure I plug them again because they're super cool. Let's see here. Woodworks. Yeah, there it is. 3 days left. Boom, 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 boom. Okay, go to screen share. So, this is Woodworks Gaming. They're doing this Kickstarter that's super cool. Let's see, turn. Yeah, their stuff is so pretty. All of those tokens on the front there are removable, so they turn into coasters, which I think is very fun. Yeah, it's very pretty. That whole team is super fun. We had them on the show a little while back. Enough space for rogue sneak attack dice. Absolutely. You can store a ton of dice in there. Something very satisfying about watching that. So that's Woodworks Gaming. They have 3 days left to go. They've already beat their goal, which was 10,000, so they're already past that. There's a lot of different options in here. You can get the Player's Vault, which is just the one designed for if you're a player. The Travels Vault opens up, has all that extra space in it. The GM's Vault is the one that opens up into the GM screen, which is just super cool, very pretty. I love that. They also have the interchangeable character class coasters for the front, or the Game Master ones. They've got additional themed ones. They also just put out new art for some of the core classes as well. Sakura, you were talking about rogue sneak attack dice. You got the rogue right there with the poison, the dagger, the coins. You get to choose which inserts you want, so you can swap things out. You can get different add-ons, so if you want additional inserts so you can put in different things. If you want more coasters, the clear vault cover, the grid, parchment vault cover, battle packs, and I believe, let me verify before I say it. There is still space for their first wave of shipments. So if you back their Kickstarter, they're hoping to have them out in November, and it may even be earlier than that, depending on the number of people that get it out there. Also, free shipping if you're in the US, which is very fun. I've backed a lot of Kickstarters and then had my shipment get close to shipping, and it's like, oh, by the way, you owe us $60 more, and I'm like, why? There's a bunch of people from TikTok that have hey, oh my goodness, look, it's us, that's us, hey, we're on their Kickstarter. That makes me very happy. What's this? Nope. It's probably because the video is already taken off of Twitch. But that's super cool. I didn't realize they had added that on there. That makes me very happy. But yeah, they're awesome. I got their one of their new dice boxes at Origins, which is just very, very pretty. It just catches the light in a beautiful way. Look how shiny that is. You can see my screen reflected in it. It's so pretty. That is it's become my standard rolling tray that it sits on my desk at all times. It does open up into the whole box, but this is just the very basic one. It's not the new one that they're doing the Kickstarter for. So awesome. That does it for ads. No mas ads. We are back. Okay, so let's see here. Let me just adjust my mic real quick. Boom, boom, boom. Okay. So one thing that I want to talk about, because I had a couple of people send me questions on it. So I wanted to address it. A lot of people have asked. I run my games in an open living world, which means that all of my games are happening roughly in the same timeline, and they're all taking place in the same world. So the things that happen in one game can have ramifications and ripples out into other people's games. A lot of people have asked me how I balance that. The short answer is that I'm never going to have something happen where one player just decides to ruin things for everybody else. The majority of the time it's going to be ripple effects, not an outright cannon shot to the other person's game. That being said, there are things that people have made yeah, BBG Hayward, like when you skip 22 months. Yeah, if your characters move forward in the timeline, you're gonna be in a different timeline than other people. My games also, like, I have players that only play once a month. I have players that play every week. I have players that play every other month. Those games, well, yes, they're roughly taking place in the same timeline. It is not taking place in the exact same like moment, because that would be absurd. Because of that, it gives me a little bit of flexibility in how things are presented. Everybody is playing in the same world and in the same timeline, but there are like some differentiations to that stuff. So if somebody does something that is going to cause a massive ripple effect, it's probably going to take a little bit for that ripple to hit other people so that I have time to figure out the ramifications of it. It'd be very rare for somebody to do something in one session, and the next session with everybody else, that thing is affecting them. Usually it's going to take a couple of sessions for me to figure out what that ramification looks like. And because it's async. Because that timeline doesn't mesh up exactly, like nobody I have a calendar that I know where people are at on that calendar, but nobody else is asking, like, okay, but what day of the year in what year and month, and like due to the continent we're on, what's the time difference to other like nobody's asking that. This is not a prompt for you to start asking me that in your games. But the majority of the games, because I keep that sort of amorphous, allows me to play with that a little bit. So like BBG Hayward brings up that they recently time skipped. Their characters went into the Feywild, came out of the Feywild, and it messed them up. So they moved into the future, basically, from coming out of that time sink. Because of that, their game moved forward in the timeline, which ended up working out pretty well, actually, for their story. What it has opened us to is that there was another group that was playing in a slightly advanced time. Their characters were adventuring about almost 2 years after what the other groups were, because of the timeline that I had set up for them. And so because they were playing in that timeline, it meant that I could now sync up those two games. And their games will have a much closer ripple effect on each other than they would have otherwise. But I have groups that are playing really far back in the timeline, where they're doing things in the game probably 300 years before the events of other games. It's just the setting that they wanted to be playing in was easier to produce if I wound the clocks back. If you watch things like our actual play of Hooligans, that game takes place like 300 to 400 years after what my current timeline is. It's in the next age, when magic has sort of died. And so looking at that, there's a destination that I have to move towards, because in those 300 years, at some point before then, something has to happen to trigger that. And so I know what that something was, which means that gives me a way to map out where my story should go. If one group doesn't move in that direction, another group will. It's a weird sort of dance that I get to play with all of the players. one of the other questions that somebody asked me was, is my because it is open world and a living world, so it is like it has those ripple effects. Do I railroad my players into like doing things so that things happen the way I need them to do? And the short answer is no. If I really need something to happen, I can make a group of NPCs do it. If there's something specific that I need to happen in order for my story, I can have somebody else do it, or I'll direct a different group of adventurers that way. BBG Hayward can attest to the fact that their group has left substantially more adventures undone than what they have completed. I have my group tonight, which is the group that Mel plays in. That's how I met Mel and got Shelly into the Hooligans game is through my game that plays tonight. Their group is infamous for not getting into fights. They went 9 sessions without rolling initiative. They just really enjoy the story and the roleplay, and that's what they're there for, which is awesome. I love that so much. Because that is my favorite part of D&D. So if you're a really roleplay driven character, you're much more interested in the story and stuff like that, hit me up. I would love to run a game for you. But their group is infamous for it. They just don't get into fights if they can avoid them. And it's not always a case of like they're running away from the fight. A lot of the time they just find a different solution to the problem than fighting. Instead of fighting their way through, they're gonna like ask questions or befriend or like solve a puzzle or go around or like they prevent themselves from having to be in fights by finding alternate routes. Which is super fun. I love that. In Starfinder, you use your grenade launcher for the first time, had it since the start, and you're a good 6 to 7 sessions in. Absolutely. I played with Davy Jones last week. We played in their game, and we were 2.5 hours in to a 3-hour game before they made a die roll, because it was all just role play and interaction and like planning and plotting, and it was so much fun. I had a ton of fun with that game, but like it's one of those questions of like, how long can you go without rolling dice before like it's technically not D&D? I love it though. I love that type of game. You're such an ADHD group. Yes, you are. You guys get bored with adventures very quickly, and run off to find the next thing. You guys, I am going to have to shoehorn and railroad you a little bit just to get you to do a mission. You gotta do something. But no, I love your guys' group. It's a ton of fun. Gives me a wide playground to build. Sakura, I love a game that like you just don't have to use everything all the time. I have players who are spellcasters who just don't use their spells all that often because they've built the character out to be more of a martial build. Who also has magic. That is all C17R. He's not solely responsible, but he is causing a lot of it. Yes, I know you would. The rest of your group gets the squirrel effect of like, they hear about one thing and they're like, well, we should go do that now instead of finishing what we're working on right now. I love a roleplay driven group though. If you're a group, or you know a group where you're like, they don't even fight anything. They're just going for the story. I know a lot of people who think that sounds very boring. It doesn't have to be. If you do it right, you can still have a lot of dice rolling without having a lot of combat. You can have all sorts of other stuff out there, and combat then just means that it becomes much more intense when it happens. The last fight that this group that rarely rolls initiative, the last fight that they got into was brutal. And there wasn't a way for them to necessarily avoid it, because it caught up to them. You can only run for so long before something's going to catch up to you. Every type of fun is valid. Not every type. If your fun comes at the detriment of other people's fun, your fun is not valid, and I'm sorry. If you are a player who is going to have fun at the expense of the other players in the group, your fun is not worth more than their fun. But I understand what you're saying, BPJ Hayward. Every type of game is good, as long as everybody is enjoying it. If you are having fun in a game and no one else is having fun, you need to find a different group. Your fun, it's not that your fun isn't valid, it's that you are playing with the wrong group. If that's the type of game you enjoy, find a group that enjoys that. There's a ton of different groups out there. There's so many different types of people that play this game. You can absolutely find somebody who will enjoy the game the way you want to enjoy it. If you're a murder hobo playing in a group of people who is really roleplay driven, find a different group. If you're a really roleplay heavy player playing in a group where all they want to do is get into the next fight, find a different group. There's no shame in finding a different group. I would much rather, if somebody is not having fun in one of my games, I would much rather somebody come to me and be like, hey, this really just isn't working out for me. I would prefer the game to be more along these lines. And then I can fix that. I can get you into a game that is going to be more in line with what you're looking for. I've got enough games out there that if what we're currently doing isn't working, we can fix that. We can get you into a game that'll be better in line with what you're looking for. Sakura, you enjoy everything so much. Give you 100% roleplay, give you a dungeon crawl, give me anything and you're good. Just in it for the love of the game. I love that. Yeah, I love the game. Pretty much any type of game I'm good, as long as it's not something where you're just railroading the players constantly. Like, as long as my choices matter, I don't care what those choices are in correlation to. The moment I feel like nothing I do affects the story as a whole, that's when you start getting real Chaos Gremlin Hunter to come out, who's just like, oh, you're not gonna recognize that what I'm doing should affect the story. I'll make you understand that this should be affecting the story. You don't want that. When Chaos Gremlin Hunter comes out and decides he's going to break your story, that's bad, and I apologize to every GM that I have ever done that to. I'm super sorry. But the if the ADHD gremlin that lives in my brain gets bored, tries to find fun things to do, and a lot of that is breaking the world. Railroads are great for Eberron, agreed. I had a group of players that were playing in I called it Eberron Outlands. It was a It was a campaign sort of tangentially set in Eberron, but really far removed from any of the major cities. So it was more of this like Wild West setting, which was so much fun. I had a ton of fun with that game. But it was a Wild West game, but they were like riding around on dinosaurs and shooting laser rifles at like robot bandits. It was basically Mandalorian. Mandalorian had come out. I was very inspired by Mandalorian. I'll fully admit that game was basically Mandalorian. But I had so much fun with that game. One of the players in that game, they had gotten onto a train, and they'd gotten onto a train. The train had taken off. They realized they needed to get off of the train, and so one of the players tied a rope around their waist, tied the rope off on the inside of the train, so that if they jumped and they didn't make it, the rest of their party could pull them back in. Not thinking about the fact that if they jump and they did make it, they were still tied to the train. And so they tied themselves off. They tied it on the inside of the train. They jumped off and immediately just sort of got like sucked down, like along the side of the train. I gave them rolls. I was like, make a survival check to like see if this is a good idea, and they rolled horribly. I was like, okay, make a dexterity saving throw as you jump to like realize you're gonna get sucked under and like cut the rope so you don't. They failed the check. Like I gave them 4 or 5 chances to save themselves without giving without giving it away what was gonna happen. I was just like, make a dex save. Nope. Okay, cool. You get like slammed against the side of the train as it's going, as you reach the end of the rope. And then they were like, okay, well, somebody pull me back in, and somebody starts pulling on the rope, and I'm like, okay. That character ended up getting sucked underneath the train and just obliterated. Which was fine. It was like the first session that character was in, and by the time they reached that point, they already were like, I'm not necessarily thrilled with this character. I would prefer to play a different thing. So they were gonna make a new character anyway. It worked out, but I will always remember the time that the player tied themselves off on the inside of the train before jumping out, and then got run over by the train. Quickest way to die in D&D is doing something stupid. Let's see here. Had a game set in Sharn, 1920s noir detective who was also an old kobold. I love that. I really do. That's fantastic. Several air battles and some really cool multi-level fights. I had a game, actually that same Eberron game, where they like were raiding an old warehouse, and there were different elevations to it, and the middle was open, and so people were like shooting down from the top, but had cover from the upper ledges. That was really fun. Spice up a Western game, encounter a zombie steer with your single action 6-shooter. That sounds like it will end poorly. Sam Marlowe, Private Eye. That's very fun, Sakura. I like that a lot. I would play the heck out of a 1920s noir game. Be fun, see? Love that. Inquisitive Rogue. Yeah. I like that a lot. Anybody out there who's planning a stream where you're going to be doing that setting, hit me up. We'll turn my camera black and white. Be great. I love that. Skill monkey. That's a great phrase. I'm super into that. I really want to. I want to do a show about that now. I don't want to GM it though. Somebody else GM that, and we'll put it on the platform. That'd be super fun. Oh man, I'm into this. Sakura, you've just ruined the rest of my day, because the rest of my day is going to be spent thinking on how to do this well. That sounds like so much fun. Let's see here. How do you choose who is the central character in a given session? Ooh, interesting. It's so it's not necessarily who the central character is for me. It's a case of who is the, like, what is the current story you're working on, and who would be the sort of spotlight person for that story. So if you're in a game that is closely revolving around, and I'll use your guys' game as an example. If you're doing a storyline where it's a lot of stealth and intrigue, working with the Thieves Guild, that sort of stuff, I'm probably going to choose Delphira as, like, it makes sense. She's the central focal point. If you're doing something involving the temples or anything like that, that's going to be more of a Herald thing, maybe a Lillian thing, but it for the most part, I prefer characters that are like, there's not a main character to the story. I want everybody to be able to do stuff in whatever we're doing. Every once in a while a main character pops up, but it usually has to do with what the player is doing. Stepping into the spotlight is usually a player decision, not a GM decision in my experience. Unless I am specifically tying a story to a specific character. For example, there's been in your guys' game, there's been a lot of back and forth with, like, Oshira and Nathan, like that whole thing, and you guys actually skipped over the majority of that story because of the time skip. They were left behind, so a lot of that stuff got sort of skipped over. A lot of the time it just depends on, like, for the majority of scenes, I don't choose somebody that I think is going to be the focal point of it. I prep a scene, and then when I present it, I see who steps up into that focal position. And if it tends to be the same person over and over again, I'll try and, like, target other people with specific scenes. But I rarely go into a scene prepping it with the intent of, like, this is a scene for this character. With the exception of an actual play. If it's an actual play, I do build scenes around specific characters, because I want to make sure all of my characters are getting a chance to shine. But also in the but also want to make sure that, like, everybody has a chance to shine, but it's also in the overarching story. It makes sense for those elements to be there. You find in your experience that your character will take over the spotlight if you don't consciously ensure other folks get a chance. That, in my opinion, is because your Herald is sort of accidentally the leader of the group. Herald is not doesn't strike me as somebody who, like, sought that leadership position, but he is the person that the rest of the group turns to as, like, somebody who is in a leadership position. A good way to combat that would be if you just fully embrace that and take that leadership position and start telling people to do things. In a respectful way, not in a, like, I'm in charge and I'm going to, like, I'm gonna do this, but, like, in a way where you're asking the players, like, hey, why would Delphira be down to scout around out there? Would Terran be down to step up and try and interact here? Oshira, you're good with people. Why don't you go talk to him? You'll still be sort of in that spotlight because the rest of the party has put him there a little bit. But he's inviting other people up into the spotlight and then sort of taking a step back. That would help a lot, I feel like. A good way to do that is to be a bit more patient and give other times to think. Yeah, it's not a case of BBG Hayward like always stepping up into the spotlight. This is a case of the rest of the party somewhat puts the spotlight on you. You're the leader of the group in a way. Even though I think the majority of the group would not like acknowledge that. None of the characters would admit that Harald was the leader. But like he clearly is. He's the one that keeps everybody focused. He's the one that points everybody in the right direction. Like that's a leadership position. And whoever the leader of an adventuring party is will always end up towards the center more than the outskirts. One of my I play in a game on Wednesdays. And I intentionally made a character that I was like, this is not a character who's a leader. This is like he's a bard. He's an old toy maker. Like I had no intention of him being in a leadership position. He was just sort of like on a journey of self-discovery type of character. And just because of who I am, my characters tend to end up being in a leadership position, because in a situation where other players are hesitant to make a choice, I'm usually fine to do it. I know my character pretty well. I know what choice he would make, so I end up being that person who like makes a decision. And I hadn't thought about the fact that this character had arrived in that leadership position until a couple of sessions ago when somebody literally said, well, let's ask Led, he's the leader. And I was like, I'm not the leader. I don't want to be the leader. I'm like, I don't know who the leader is. This is sort of an independent, like, leadership position. I don't think that any of us are really the leader. Like, it turned into a whole thing. But I think that leadership role will naturally attract to one character. And if you don't think the group has a leader, you're probably the leader or an anarchist. It was a very good question, Harald, though. Thank you. That's a good topic. I could go into a lot more depth talking about stuff like that, but I feel like that's one that I would want to have a guest on, and we'll go back and forth and sort of debate it. But that feels like a good place to wrap up today. Partially because like that was a good topic to end on. Partially because Sakura has hijacked the rest of my day with thinking about a 1920s crime show D&D game. And I really just want to dive into that. But in my creative, I do not perform well in a like a creative prep space. In my prep space, I need to sort of delve in and just like splatter paint my Word docs with just like random ideas, and that makes bad content. So once I have some thoughts on it, I might bring it to an episode. We'll talk about it there, but I like this concept, Sakura. So I think we'll run with it. I like it. Awesome, guys. Thank you so much for being around. Thank you for tuning in. I look forward to seeing what comes out of this idea, Sakura. If anybody is going to be at Gen Con, hit me up. We'll be there. We'll be doing all sorts of random stuff there. Usually I work at conventions, but this time I'm literally just there. So if you have stuff that you're doing and you want to hit us up, let us know. I think almost all, if not all of the hooligans will be there. Which is going to be awesome. It'll be the first time that I will have met the majority of the hooligans in the real world, which I'm very excited about. But yeah, I'm very excited for Gen Con. If you, in addition to Gen Con stuff, we are, I'm going to be putting in an order for a collection of pins. Just a limited run. I think I'm going to do 50. So if there is a specific type of thing that you would like to see us do a pin of, whether that is a one of our characters, or you want to see us do a specific like joke from the show or something like that. That could be a Warlocks and Waffles thing. It could be a Hash Browns and Hooligans thing. Whatever you want us to be doing, hit us up. Let us know. I posted something in the Discord the other day. If you've got ideas, toss them in there in response to it and tag me, because I'm excited. I'm gonna put that order in probably in the next couple of days. So make sure you get your voices heard now. Thank you all for coming out. Thank you all for being here. I will see you all next week. We're back here on Monday morning for more Warlocks, and then Hash Browns and Hooligans is Monday night. You guys can see the outcome of all of that happened last time. If you haven't watched the last episode yet, you should. It got intense at the end there. So, thank you all so much for being here. I will talk to you all later. Bye.